welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Boy, we got a great lineup of people coming in the studio. But first, we are going to share with you an interview I had just last Friday with our good friend, Dr. Jerome Corsi. Now, he's one of the top reporters for WorldNet Daily, and I don't know if you visit that website. It's a website that pulls together stories from all across the country, and in some ways are great resources. But he is one of those reporters, and he's written a lot of books, but his latest one is Who Really Killed Kennedy? Now, the reason that this information, or a lot of people are writing about this again, is that for years, over 40 years, most of the information surrounding JFK's assassination was classified information. Well, just recently, it now has been declassified. And so a lot of people have picked up that information, doing the research, connecting the dots. So I think you'll find our time together with Dr. Corsi to be pretty fascinating. Join us now as we talk to him. Well, today it's always an honor to have with us Dr. Jerome Corsi. He's senior staff reporter for WorldNet Daily, and I'm sure you have read a lot of his articles. It's always an honor to have him on the show. And today we're going to talk to him about his book, Who Really Killed Kennedy? And, of course, we wanted to get into some other issues with him as well. So, Dr. Corsi, nice to have you, my friend. How you doing?
Good, Perry. Good to be back with you. Thank you.
You know, you take on a lot of subjects, but why this one?
This is a subject I've been involved with since I was a kid. My father was a labor lobbyist for the Brotherhood of Railroad Trainmen, and I knew the Kennedys, saw the Kennedys going back to the 1957 McClellan Committee hearings when Jack Kennedy first came to public prominence nationally. And I've known a lot of the people involved. I tell a story in Who Really Killed Kennedy of the Elkins family, which is the crime family in Portland, Oregon, that was J.B. Elkins was the lead witness in the McClellan Committee hearings. And it's largely an unknown story, as I think much of what I discuss in the book is not really appreciated fully. The Elkins in the Oval Office told Jack Kennedy he was going to be killed. There was an assassination attempt underway, and that they described the plot to him in great detail, that it would be a high-powered rifle with scope, tall building during a motorcade. And the public record is even that morning when Jack Kennedy woke up in Fort Worth on November 22nd, 1963, he was talking about how easy it would be to kill him that day during the motorcade. So Jack Kennedy was fully aware that the plots were out to assassinate him, and actually, there had been 2 earlier attempts that month in November to kill Jack Kennedy in assassination plots, first in Chicago and then in Tampa.
Now, is this some of the information you got when more information was declassified?
Some of this has come, I've known some of this for years. The Dallas was the 3rd assassination attempt, first surfaced really back with the House investigation into JFK's assassination in the 70s. Most people just are totally unaware of it. A couple of good books have been written on it. Waldron and Tom Hartman discussed it in Ultimate Sacrifice, and then again in their book, A Legacy of Secrets. So, this is fully documented, and the 2 assassination plots are well known to specialists, but not to the American people. And so I wanted to resolve to bring a lot of this information that I've known over the years, including some that's not in the JFK assassination record that I researched myself or knew firsthand, and to bring it forward into the record so people can understand what the assassination was really all about.
All right, before we get into the motive here, what was the president's response to the fact that he knew he was a target? There were previous attempts, indeed, even the day that he was assassinated, that he made those comments. So why wasn't there more precaution on this?
Well, there was a lot of precaution taken. I mean, in Chicago, the Kennedys canceled the trip at the last minute when they knew the assassination plot was on. Pierre Salinger, in a very embarrassed way, explained Jack wasn't going to show up. In Tampa, the security was really heightened. And in Dallas, that morning it had been raining in Fort Worth, and those worried about Kennedy's protection thought the bubble top would go on the limousine. It's just that in the short 10-minute flight from Fort Worth to Dallas, the rain stopped and the bubble top came off. In fact, you can see the limousines, the motorcade taking off from Love Field in Dallas, and There's big pools of water on the ground from how much rain there was that day. Jack Kennedy had kind of a fatalism about him. He was not going to be a coward. He was not going to hide or stay out of the public because of an assassination threat. He had faced death many times in his life, even as a child. Jack Kennedy had Addison's disease, which is an adrenal gland deficiency. He had congenital back problems. They were not a football injury like the family said. Wore a back brace, very severe back brace, every day of his life, and was frequently on crutches. Kennedy did not want to end up his life old and an invalid, and he had an acceptance that he might die young. His favorite poem was "I Have a Rendezvous with Death." He used to recite that one all the time.
All right, so so many things come out of this. Was there more than one shooter? Yes.
I mean, I say that I'm not only interested in who the shooters are, but I want people to understand who put the shooters in the field. I really argue that Jack Kennedy was the first victim of what we've come to call this New World Order. And I assign the main responsibility for the assassination at the doorstep of Allen Dulles, who was the head of the CIA that Jack Kennedy fired after the Bay of Pigs fiasco.
Right.
And by the way, Bobby Kennedy assigned it too. Bobby Kennedy fired every Dulles he could find in the federal government and swore that no Dulles would ever work again in the federal government as long as he was alive. But this whole New World Order crowd, which came in after World War II, was actually before. If we go back to who Allen Dulles was, Allen Dulles and his brother John Foster Dulles, for whom the airport is named in Washington. John Foster Dulles was Secretary of State under Eisenhower, 1953, and Allen Dulles was head of the CIA. The two of them had worked with Brown Brothers Harriman firm, the Wall Street firm, prior to World War II, and they were funding Hitler. We funded Hitler, and the Dulles brothers were at the center of it. The other two who were members of the Brown Brothers Harriman firm were the progenitors of the Bush dynasty, Prescott Bush and George Herbert Walker. They were all for funding Nazis. They were funding Hitler. In fact, Roosevelt, right after Pearl Harbor, had to close down a bank, a Nazi bank, Union Bank in New York, that the Dulleses and the Bushes were running. So as I relate the story, this whole idea of New World Order comes from the Nazis. The Nazis were the first to talk about New World Order. And what they meant, Nazis were National Socialists. They were leftists. They had the idea that they could have a partnership between business and government. The communists wanted to eliminate private property and wanted to eliminate business, where the Nazis were happy to have business and government, but they wanted to fight wars so they could rearm, and the munitions were seen to develop, even if they were lying wars, even if they, Reichstag lies, Reichstag fire lies. They were happy to tell that and whip the people up into a war frenzy for the international cross-border, multi-state businesses where the Dulleses and the Bushes were forming partnerships with IG Farben and other industrial German companies with U.S. companies. And between wars, the Dulleses, Allen Dulles stayed in Bern, Switzerland, where he was, by 1943, helping the Germans move their money out of Germany. Number two, Bormann, to Hitler, worked with Dulles. They moved billions in today's market value, probably trillions, out of Germany into the U.S. stock market.
Wow.
And we brought over, tens of thousands of German scientists. By the way, Germany also had envisioned a welfare state for those not able to participate in the economic growth of their multinational corporations, and a Gestapo that would enforce, in concentration camps, anyone who disagreed with them. And I say that the Dulleses and this whole New World Order crowd was determined that we were going to become the Fourth Reich. And what John Kennedy would not fight Allen Dulles' Lying Wars. It really brings you back to themes of the warnings that Eisenhower gave in the farewell address when he warned Americans about the military-industrial complex. And Kennedy, when he would not allow Allen Dulles to trick him into using in the Bay of Pigs, this was not a freedom fighter group hitting the beaches. This was a CIA-trained mercenary army. Kennedy knew it. Dulles had planned that the mercenaries were going to fail on the beach. He thought he could trick Jack Kennedy into being embarrassed that he would, this invasion was going to fail, and that Kennedy would launch a airstrike from a carrier offshore of Cuba. Kennedy refused. He wouldn't go to war with Cuba over this ragtag CIA mercenary army. And as soon as the Bay of Pigs was over, he unceremoniously fired Allen Dulles for the CIA, said he was going to break the CIA up into 1,000 pieces, and that's when I say Jack Kennedy signed his death warrant.
Wow. Wow. All right, let me take a quick break here. When I come back, Dr. Corsi, I want to talk to you about, from your opinion, who was Lee Harvey Oswald, what was his connections to all of this, and then you, like me and some others, have seen some of the pictures of JFK's wounds that appear that there were multiple gun wounds, and maybe you can comment on that. We'll be right back with Dr. Jerome Corsi from WorldNet Daily in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Okay, we're back with Dr. Jerome Corsi, and of course we're talking about his new book, Who Really Killed Kennedy, and this whole subject has been fascinating for years, to say the least. In my lifetime, I think we've lived to see two of those things, where were you when? One was when Kennedy was assassinated, and the other one was 9/11. And I remember Dr. Corsi very vividly. I was a sophomore in high school. I was in the middle of a German class, trying to learn German, didn't do very well in it, and the speaker came over, and the loudspeaker saying that the president had been shot, and of course the rest is history. I have seen those videos where it looks like the president's head went forward and back. Can you comment on that and the wounds that you saw?
Well, all the wounds at Parkland were described at Parkland Hospital in Dallas, is where Kennedy was first brought immediately after the shooting, and the doctors were world class. They recognized immediately that Kennedy was not going to be saved. All the wounds were observed to be frontal wounds. The throat wound was just right of the Adam's apple. It was a puncture mark, an entry wound from the front. And if it was a frontal wound, then there had to be more than one shooter, because the Texas School Book Depository, where Lee Harvey Oswald was supposed to have been, was behind Jack Kennedy at that time when the shooting started. And the head wound was observed at Parkland. Doctors all universally, they put their hands up to their head. They said the back of his head was blown away. That would again be an exit wound, in other words, a frontal shot. Now, in studying the head wound, I agreed with Josiah Thompson, who did some very precise measurements, and I think it was a double hit. I think first there was a hit to the back of the head, and it started moving the head forward. That's when the head flap comes out of the Zapruder film. That's an exit wound. But then simultaneously, Kennedy is hit from the front, and the back of his head is blown out, and that drives Kennedy's body violently to the left and back. You can even see the head wound in the back. People very rarely study the end of the Zapruder film, but Jackie Kennedy went out in the back of the car, in the trunk, to collect her husband's brain matter and try to put it back in his head. It was like an impulse when you break an arm. If you just put it back together again, it'll be all right. And she actually sat Jack Kennedy up. In the end of the Zapruder film, which very few people watch, is very bizarre. It's eerie because Kennedy's sitting up with his head all back put together again, looking as if he's just fine, sitting upright going through the triple underpass. Of course, he's dead. And in a nicely enhanced picture where you can see the back of his head, it's clear the back of his head is blown away, just like the doctor said at Parkland.
All right, so who is Lee Harvey Oswald?
Well, again, I point out in the book who really killed Kennedy, that the Warren Commission suppressed evidence. The Warren Commission, Lee Rankin, the chief counsel, wrote a memo to the Warren Commission stating that Lee Harvey Oswald was they had evidence Lee Harvey Oswald was a paid FBI informant. He was being paid $200 a month. He was an agent. They had his agent number. They also had Lee Harvey Oswald's CIA agent number. And there was a file being maintained in the CIA starting in 1960. It was created by James Angleton, who kept the files on U.S. military who we encouraged to defect to the Soviet Union as double agents. Soviet Union thought that they were wanting to renounce their citizenship. So evidently, Oswald was also a CIA agent, and this defection to the Soviet Union was a staged defection. Evidently, even though the Warren Commission said that Lee Harvey Oswald was a communist, likely that was just the cover story, because if Oswald was in this program with these files being maintained, the strong likelihood is that he was always loyal to the United States. And again, the Warren Commission held a meeting on this information on January 27, 1964, an internal meeting. The minutes of those internal meetings are now available and are on the internet. And the Warren Commission, at the recommendation of Allen Dulles, decided this information was just too explosive, too damaging to the FBI and to the CIA. So the Warren Commission suppressed the evidence. And made Lee Harvey Oswald an agent. And I argue in the book that Lee Harvey Oswald most likely did not leave the lunchroom, that he was on the second floor throughout the shooting. I've been convinced that's where Lee Harvey Oswald was told to go, and believing he was an agent following an assignment, I think that's where he went.
All right, the gentleman that shot him, was that an informant as well?
Well, you know, Jack Ruby was Jack Rubenstein. He had ties back to the Chicago Capone mob of the 1930s. He had murdered a labor union official for the mob and was sent to Dallas, and he had always remained in the mob. So a lot of mob calls just before he shot Oswald. In fact, you referenced earlier the World Trade Center. You know, when the first plane went to the World Trade Center, I was watching it on television. I thought that could be an accident. When the second plane hit, that instant you said terrorism. I was watching television that Sunday morning when Jack Ruby jumped out and shot Harvey Oswald in the stomach, you know, the intestines. Mob hit. And immediately I said mob, because it was so obviously a silencing, a mob-type hit, that it just jumped out at me that this was, you know, a mob involvement plan. And the mob and the CIA had been working together since Lucky Luciano in World War II, the mobster who was let out of prison and helped us turn the Sicilian mafia, to be sympathizers with the Allies when we invaded Sicily during World War II.
Well, I too remember, because it was one of the few things at that point, live television being what it is, to see that happen was a rare thing, to have cameras in that that parking lot when that happened.
And it was shocking.
Yeah,
very shocking.
But, all right, you know, so what, Dr. Corsi, what are you trying to do with this book? I mean, you're uncovering, you're documenting a lot of things that we've all have been suspicious of. Some people call it conspiracy. You know the drill. But now you have brought it forward as most of this information has been declassified. What do you want your readers to get from this?
Well, see, the point of the book is that the day Jack Kennedy was killed was the day this New World Order crowd won. Kennedy was not going to go He didn't go into Laos with troops. He was not going to go into Vietnam. He was not going to fight a lying CIA war. And the CIA, Lyndon Johnson was involved. Lyndon Johnson was going to be replaced on the ticket. And this whole idea that we would fight wars for CIA purposes like Laos or Vietnam when they really weren't in our national security interest, and we were lied to, Johnson fit the bill. A lying Gulf of Tonkin resolution from an incident that never happened, that Jack Kennedy would have scoped out in a minute. Johnson revved up the country, authorizing resolution for Vietnam, a war Jack Kennedy was right. We could not win the way we were going to fight it, but yet it produced for the munitions companies billions of dollars, and we suddenly started single sourcing the weapons. You know, Bell built all the helicopters. That had never happened before. One weapon system was built by multiple companies, and it carries forward. I mean, you know, so we're surprised there were no weapons of mass destruction for Saddam Hussein. I mean, you know, that's the normal MO. Or today, we're having the drums beat by John Kerry saying Sadat was the one who carried out these chemical attacks in Syria, and they have CIA information, but of course we can't see it. And the UN doesn't agree. The UN says there were chemical attacks, but it was the rebels. I mean, come on, this is a pattern where we're fighting these Middle Eastern wars for CIA purposes, and the only economic benefit is to the Saudi Arabians for their oil and their concern over the Shiites in Iran. And yet the American people are lied to or drawn into these wars. And we have massive intelligence agencies. NSA hears every conversation. Hitler would love to have Germany in charge of the EU without firing a shot and have a regional government in place that was reaching across to do a transatlantic partnership with the United States, superseding our sovereignty once again, with us having an NSA that was working hand in hand with Germany and anyone else, you know, capable of surveilling the population. Hitler never had anything like that. And a CIA that would lie about wars and keep the war energy going for economic benefit. I mean, in a sense, the whole point of this book is, you know, the Allen Dulleses, the dark forces in the CIA, the military-industrial complex killed Jack Kennedy. It was a coup d'etat. And as a result of that, we've become, Jack Kennedy was going to break up the CIA, was not going to fight in Vietnam. We never would have had the student protests of the 60s and the radicalization of the universities. And Jack Kennedy was going to break up the Federal Reserve.
Wow.
He was going to print our own money.
It's called Who Really Killed Kennedy by Dr. Jerome Corsi. You may want to get a copy of it. Check it out at Barnes & Noble or online at Amazon.com. Dr. Corsi, I really do value our time together. I have never heard it so succinctly as you just put it. Thank you for your research and your work, and let's stay in touch and get you back. By the way, before I let you go, you were the first one that said that the chemicals were used by the rebels, right?
Yes. Said that from the very beginning.
Yeah.
It was clear, and we had video of the rebels doing it, but even when you look at the setup of it, there was no reason for that attack to have been a Sadat, to have been an Assad attack.
Right.
Sadat was winning. It didn't make any sense. It made perfect sense for it to be a rebel attack. And why are we thinking even of going into Syria to support Al-Qaeda and jihadists? That's what Obama's been supporting all through Northern Africa with the Muslim Brotherhood. But the Saudis like it because the Saudis want Sadat gone. He's an ally of their archenemy, Iran.
Interesting. Hey, thanks, my friend.
Thanks, Barry.
I really do appreciate and value our time together. We'll get you back soon.
Anytime. Thank you very much.
Well, fascinating to say the least with Dr. Corsi. We will have him back. Coming up next, well, got a new friend in the studio. Drove all the way over from Klamath Falls to be in the studio with us today talking about the Tree of Life Wilderness Expeditions. And that's coming up next year on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us. or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Okay, welcome back, and having in the studio with us today a new friend, and delighted to have with us today Jim Yahne, and he is the founder of the Tree of Life Wilderness Expeditions. It is a nonprofit organization, 501c3, and Jim is also a certified alcohol and drug counselor with a master's degree in health education as well, and years of experience in what he does. But one of the most unique programs you'll ever hear. Jim, welcome to the studio, and thanks for coming all the way over from Klamath Falls.
Thank you, Perry.
Good to see you.
Great to be here.
All right. Well, tell us, the Tree of Life Wilderness Expedition. This is really unique. How did you get started in this?
Well, I've kind of had a family and career background in the woods. I'll try to keep it really short, but my dad used to take me out in the woods, and I just enjoyed fishing and being out in the forest. And then through the years, I got involved in working for the Forest Service and was involved in firefighting and just spent a lot of time out in the woods and felt like it was a very, very good place for me to be able to think and draw near to the Lord. And I worked in construction and mill work, and found myself in the mid-90s. The timber industry was changing, and I came over to Southern Oregon and got my master's degree in health education. I was thought I was originally going to be a physical therapist, but I found myself, I'd been working at the hospital at the Sky Lakes Medical Center in Klamath Falls. And as I kind of progressed, I ended up going into alcohol and drug treatment services, and kind of promised myself I'd never become a counselor, but I just wanted to be out in the woods.
Okay, so you took all of that and combined it with being, you're calling yourself an outdoor hospital or a woods hospital?
Wilderness hospital.
Wilderness
but
hospital.
Outdoor hospital is probably pretty close.
Now, you're more than just a couple of weeks throughout the year. This goes on all the time.
We do. We operate year-round, and we've been primarily in the summer, but probably one of our biggest challenges is that not very many people know that we exist. There are wilderness programs throughout the country, but as far as we know, some academy and ranch programs that operate, kids go for 18-month placement, very commonly for a 1-year academy school program placement, and they may have a wilderness component. But in order to participate in that, most students have to be enrolled in those schools year-round. A lot of folks are able to access community-based counseling and go to see a pastor or a local outpatient counselor and attend 2 to 3 meetings a week, or very commonly a once-a-week type counseling service. And what we're designed for is those folks who have maybe tried that and have a need for further services. We originally grew out of wilderness trails and still are participating with wilderness trails as a camp. But what we saw was there were some kids who needed more than a 2 or 3, 4-day service. And so my partner and I started Tree of Life, and we've been operating now. We originally didn't know that we were going to need to be a licensed program, but after 2 or 3 years, we were contacted by Children's Services Division in the state of Oregon, and what we're actually licensed is an outdoor youth program.
Okay. All right, so you take young people and you take them out in the woods, and of course, with your counseling background, you work with them. So when you take these people and you go, how long are you gone for?
Our average, excuse me, our average stay in the woods is about 21 days. It's a kind of a 21 to 30 day service.
Really?
And we can operate up to 60 days, but it's basically we do an assessment with the family before they come. It's often an intervention with a family member. We actually work with adults also, but it's been primarily with youth.
So is it a result of an intervention?
It can be.
It can be. Now, I've heard those, and they're a little an abrupt start, but they do work, and they get started, and away you go.
Yeah. So we've so for instance, a couple of years ago, this is kind of one of our blog testimonies was a family over in Boise, Idaho, had actually had to arrange to have a transport of a family member. And this individual came not very happy about coming to Tree of Life, but we're basically a treatment program. And so,
now, what happens on these trips?
you know, I think mostly what can happen is that a student is in a safe place where they can't just walk out of a 45-minute session in an office in town somewhere.
And go right back into the environment.
They can't just go hide back possibly in their room. They're not going to go back to the environment of other friends. They're not able to, they're kind of with themselves in a place where in God's creation. And are kind of, again, different from a camp, is we're an expedition program. And so kind of the metaphor of the journey is to identify something that a person wants to move away from, and basically leaving Egypt and moving towards the promised land. And so
do you get into withdrawals out there?
a person needs to be able to be cleared by their doctor first. We have a medical doctor, a medical director of the program. We have a licensed counselor of social work, and so we have a multidisciplinary team. And so that's part of the assessment, is to make sure that a person could safely. It's not a detox center.
So how many people will you take on an expedition for over 21 days?
Well, our license allows us to take up to 10 students at a time, but we have typically been operating with 1-2 students. Our goal really would like to be able to grow awareness to where we could actually have 4 or 5 students at a time. 6 students would be a really optimum group size. We always have at least 2 staff, and have had, we had a group last summer with 5 students, and with training new staff, we had 3 staff.
You know, I gotta just imagine, Jim, that the first couple of days are pretty rough. You know, you're out there, you have somebody who really doesn't want to be there. They see this as another program, another attempt. You're dealing with defiance, maybe low self-esteem. And plus the issues, got to be a tough couple of days.
They can be tough days, and usually our safety processes to help make that safe for the person and for our groups. We have a plan, and we basically have policies and procedures for our program that really, we're involved with the National Outdoor Leadership School, NOLS, that basically looks at how to do some risk management and safety issues. And so that's a huge piece of what we want to do, because we want it to be a safe experience.
I want to, while we have time, how do people get a hold of you and want to get more information?
We, our website is tlcwe.org.
Okay.
And my phone number is 541-281-2956.
Okay, again, that's TLCWE, so TLCWE.org, or 541-281-2956. You can get a hold of Jim and learn more about this program, maybe get their brochure sent to him. And so you're home for a while. You're going to be heading out soon?
I'm actually about ready to attend some education conference for the National Alcohol and Drug Abuse Counselors Conference, and the National Christian Adventure Association Conference is coming up here this month. And then we're hoping to offer trips over the winter. We're inviting folks who might possibly like to be leaders and be involved in the ministry. We're inviting folks who feel like maybe a short-term residential adolescent Christian program might be interested in sharing that vision. I really like that you expressed the we part of our program. It's probably the heart of from the scriptures is where we counsel from. And as the members of the body working together, when we work with an individual, it's including the brothers and sisters, family members, teachers, pastors, counselors that may be involved. Not everyone necessarily has that faith and struggles and is trying to figure it out themselves. What we talk about is how do we as a family work these things out.
You know what's so interesting? I've heard very success stories come from this, and I know it's a hard, long 21 days, but at the end, you have developed life relationships with these people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I still am in contact with folks that I had on trips years ago. And,
Really?
and again, it's that it is a relationship-based program. It's folks, caring about one another. My pastor years ago told me people don't really care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right, right.
And I would tell you that part of the reason I got involved in this work was people reached out to me as a youth and cared about me and shared the love of God with me. And our desire is to help bring about folks to be able to know Jesus' love.
Well, it's wonderful and life-changing. It's a life-changing experience.
The guy I mentioned that came unwillingly, a few days later, it was really, I love sharing this story, but he didn't want to even take his Bible that his mom had supplied in the beginning. He says, I'll go, but I don't want to take that Bible. I'll take my sleeping bag and my pack and everything. And we headed off out into the Gearhart Wilderness at that time. 2 or 3 days later, he's like, can I borrow a Bible? And he's reading his Bible, and pretty soon I hear him, he comes out of his tent, and he says, do you know it says that the Israelites cried from the mouth of their tents? It says tents in the Bible. And he started to get excited.
Wow.
Well,
God put it all together for him, huh?
Yeah, that young guy was involved in some heroin use at the time. And today has just recently gotten a real high grade point average figures as he's going to veterinary school.
Isn't that wonderful?
Doing really well.
Well, Jim, thanks for coming in.
Thank
What a
you.
delight. And again, let me just say to you, you can go to tlcwe.org or give Jim a call at 541-281-2956. Check it out. Tree of Life Christian Wilderness Expeditions. Life-changing. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Okay, we're back, and with me in the studio today is one of our colleagues in this ministry called Christian Broadcasting, and I'm delighted to have with us today Lawrence Trumbower. He is with the Rock Radio Network in Puerto Rico, and we want to find out about what he does there. Lawrence, nice to have you with us.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
Wow. So tell us about Rock Radio Network in Puerto Rico.
Well, we actually have a 3-station network, not as big as yours. But in Puerto Rico, that's pretty good because Puerto Rico is very small.
Right.
Now, for those who don't remember where Puerto Rico is, when you leave Florida, go past Cuba, Jamaica, Santo Domingo, next island, that's Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
It's a small island. It's only 100 by 35, with a population of 3.7 million people.
And you have 3 stations covering, are they AM or FM?
AM.
AM, okay.
3 AM stations.
All right, so what kind of broadcasting do you do? I mean, what's the programming lineup?
The purpose of the station is teaching. So we are putting on the same programs you have here in one respect, people like Swindoll and all of these, and we're teaching the people, following 2 Timothy 2:2, to find faithful men that they may teach others also. So that's our goal.
Now, that's a lot of people in a small area. What's the culture like? Are they hungry for Christian content?
Culture is very interesting because it's very religious in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
We are not reaching the unreached people groups. This is the church people. Church people who understand, they know about God, they know Jesus died on the cross, they just don't know what to do with it. They don't know that there's a personal salvation for people.
Really?
So we're really there to, I always say, to correct wrong doctrine.
Correct wrong doctrine. Is there a hunger for that?
Yes, I think so. That is, it's interesting the calls we get at the station, the people who are calling saying, I'm from this other, I'm such and such, but will you explain? And so they many want to find out what we're talking about.
Now, do you have a lot of broadcast competition? I mean, is media well-rounded in Puerto Rico?
Okay.
Yeah.
My island is, as I say, small, 35 by 100. 35 by 100. That's 3,515 square miles. Here in Oregon, you have 78,000 or 98,380 square miles.
Yeah.
You can put 28 Puerto Ricos in your state. So
and you've got as much as in your island as we have in the whole state, right? So 3 million plus?
Yeah. Oregon only has 178,000 more people than we have in island of Puerto Rico.
Wow.
So it's one of the most densely populated places in the world. Now, what was your question?
Well, how many? What's the radio population like? How many
radio
stations?
population.
Yeah.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
In that little island, we have 124 AM and FM stations. So it is absolutely covered.
Wow. So you got a lot of secular competition, obviously.
Tremendous amount of secular competition, and there's a lot of Christian radio stations too. But none of them that are doing what we're doing. That is not the teaching, solid teaching.
Okay.
And so we have a very special place.
So is there active evangelical churches, outreaches there?
Oh yes, yeah, loaded with churches, churches, and churches in every quarter, as it were. But the problem is, and I guess I can say this, many of the churches are not very deep in their teaching and the doctrine.
Why is that?
I don't really know.
Okay.
That is, they just, okay, this is Puerto Rico. This is a Latin country.
Right.
So the Latin people, are very emotional, very exuberant. And so when they go to church, they like to sing and bounce. And so it's easy to have a church service and not really get into good teaching, see?
Do they feel the pressure? Is Puerto Rico feeling the pressure like the rest of the world is? I mean, do you have economic pressures down there? Is the income level down? I mean, is it as messed up as some other countries like the United States? Are you feeling the pressure?
Yes, pressure and messed up. That's a good word.
Okay.
The economy, now here's two factors. The people tell me, I was in Puerto Rico for many years, and then we went back to the States, and we came back again. And when I came back, they said, "Oh, Lawrence, things are bad here. Everything is tough. There's no money. It's really, really rough." See? So I'd go to town, stop at the red light, look at the car next to me, a nice car, man on the cell phone. I mean, there's money flowing, see?
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate that it's this philosophy that we see on television nowadays, buy now, pay later.
Right.
And so everybody has these things, but they can't really afford it. And the government even shut down last year or the year before for a couple of weeks. They couldn't keep up with it.
Really?
So it's, in one sense, times are not good, but on the other sense, we have everything you'd ever want.
What's the industry?
Oh, that's a good question. We have no industry.
Really?
For years, it was sugarcane, and they shut that industry down. So we don't have a real export product. Tourism is the big thing that keeps us going.
That's basically it.
Yeah.
And that keeps a population of 3 million going. So you have a lot of people coming and going.
Oh, yes. This is a nice place, Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
We're talking tropics. We're talking 84-degree mean temperature all year long. This is and beautiful beaches, and it's a nice place to come and visit. Have you ever been there?
What's that?
Have you ever been there?
No, I have not.
Oh, then come.
I have friends
you
that have been
welcome.
there. Oh, wow. Now, you're regulated with the FCC because you are considered what in the United States?
Puerto Rico is a, just forgot the word. We're not a territory. We're not a possession. We're not a state. We are an associated free state. That's the word.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody knows what that means. I don't think nobody really understands it.
You get to vote?
No, that's the point.
Oh, you don't get to vote. That's right.
Puerto Rico
is
under the United States. So we have American money. We have the United States Post Office. Our boys go to the service. But the Puerto Rican people cannot vote in the United States. What associated free state means is that we choose our own governor, our own senators. We have our own government. But it is still under the United States.
Are you represented in Congress?
We have a representative. He has no vote. But if anything should come up in the world, the final word in Puerto Rico is the President of the United States, because we're under the states.
So you're kind of like Guam and some of those others, yeah,
sort
to
of.
some degree.
Yeah.
All right, so with that, then your broadcast industry is regulated by the Federal Communications Commission?
Correct.
You struggle with all the regulations like I do.
That's one aspect of my job.
So you're the compliance guy?
I am the compliance guy.
Man, I just went through relicensing and I'm just stacked. My brain's fried from it, you know.
Yeah.
So you do the same stuff, huh?
So see, my job is very special because I don't exist. I'm the invisible guy. See, I do all the behind-the-scenes things.
Yeah.
It's my job to make sure the stations are on the air. And so as long as everything is working, we're fine. So I'm basically on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
You're the tech guy.
If anything goes wrong, I put it back, and we're on the air, and nobody even knows that I was there. See?
Okay, well,
and
that's
the same way with the FCC.
Yeah.
I do all of that background material work to keep the stations compliant. And then,
so what is the frequencies you guys are broadcasting? Because they have to be protected from the United States, right?
Oh, yes.
Well, so what are your frequencies?
We have 3 AM stations.
Yeah.
One on 1190.
1190.
One on 1060.
Okay.
And one on 1370.
Okay, now those are still U.S. frequencies, but they're off by 10 megahertz, right?
No, these are all standard U.S. frequencies. In fact, ours.
Okay, I was thinking even. Okay, you're right. For AM, I'm sorry, AM. Okay.
Where I'm sitting at 1060, we have to load power each night to protect a station in Philadelphia.
I know that. We started with a 1,000 watt daytimer. We had to sign on at sunrise and sign off at sunset. That's how this whole thing started.
Yeah.
So what kind of powers are you running?
The one station has 10,000 watts. The other two have 5,000.
Okay. So that's good coverage.
Yeah.
Are you up? Is it hills? Are you on a hilltop? Or are you down in the valley?
Well, it's AM.
Yeah.
So the station is right on the coast.
Okay.
Our tower is 400 feet from the sea. And
I was going to say
right
the water tables bounce it around pretty good then, right?
Oh, it's tremendous because we have salt water in the
ground plane.
Ground plane, and boy, that just gives us a great signal.
I know just enough about engineering to get into trouble. Well, this is fascinating, and people want to learn more about what you're doing. Do you have a website, Rock Radio Network?
Exactly, therockradio.org.
Okay, therockradio.org, and it's covering Puerto Rico, so you may want to check that out. And it's amazing that 120 some odd stations, you say?
124.
124 stations. And there's 3 of them now with part of the Rock Radio Network and teaching. And I find that interesting that of all the churches, because I knew Puerto Rico was very religious, but you're saying the depth of their theology is very shallow.
Yes, that's our interpretation, and that's why we're doing what we do. That's why we're on the air 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, teaching.
So when people call the station for help, what do? Do you have some kind of a network to plug them in?
We have a network of pastors who are ready, as it were, and so we can just refer a person to someone in their area.
Yeah.
And of course, the people on the staff are equipped and ready.
Yeah. Man, we get the calls too. So I imagine you do too. We get a lot of calls every week.
We get some calls.
Yeah.
In fact, one interesting, I was just thinking this morning, interesting time, or do we have time?
No, we're out.
Okay.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Well,
best to you get therockradio.org. Check it out. Thank you, Lawrence, for coming in.
Thank you.
We'll see you.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.